Okay. Then there were other things which was related to the equality. Of course, the class size is very important, so that there was attempt to make sure that teachers can allocate their support according to the individual needs, and if the group class size is too big, too many students, then it is not possible. It means that the size of the class cannot be too big, and then there were also extra resources. For one model which was developed, it was that there was another person working in the classrooms, not a qualified teacher, so that the qualified teacher had the main responsibility, but the other person then helped the teacher in organizing the teaching learning process, and in taking care of the support for those students with the special needs, or when the teacher had to focus very much on the students with learning disabilities or difficulties or weak learning skills, then that person helping could organize meaningful learning activities for other students, so that this made it flexible, and also made it possible that this general aim focusing on the individual needs was possible. Then, of course, there was also then more kind of organized system of special education. We developed a model where there were first support in own regular. Yes, please. Have you?
Sorry,
Yes.
This is small class size and how many students?
So the small class size means in primary level it is about 20-24. In lower secondary level it's a bit more, but that has changed. It has not been a fixed number of. There have been variation, but in average it's about that, and then in lower secondary level then a little bit more, but below 30 was the ideal. So when we compare, for example, you probably have much bigger in cities, but maybe in countryside it's big. But that's the same in many countries, that the class size is bigger than that. So that, of course, it was quite a big investment, and but it was not so big change in the whole system, because Finland is a country which is very large from geographical point of view, and the population is small, so that we have a lot of small villages, and we had the tradition already from the beginning of 20th century that we developed schools practically everywhere where people were living, and there were plenty of schools where there were 2 teachers and maybe altogether 12 students in the whole school in remote areas. And now in this reform, the biggest change was in the cities. For example, when I went to the primary school far before this reform, we had during the first class I think 35 to 40 students, 35 about in my class, so that it was very much bigger, but mainly in bigger cities. But in the countryside, there was not big difference. So that because of that, it was not so expensive to make this system. But then the flexible part-time, the flexible special education system or special needs education. So that one part of that happened in the regular classroom. And then the second part was this part-time special education support in a small group, so that if the student had difficulties to learn to read, then the student was during some classes, not in their own classroom, but with a special education teacher in a small group where they systematically diagnosed it, what are the problems in learning to read, and remedial teaching to support the reading skills. The same a little bit in the mathematics, but earlier this special education clearly focused on language skills, reading and writing, but then gradually also to some other subjects. And then for those cases who had serious behavioral problems or then serious disabled children, there were special classes where there were only a very small number of students, and then specialized teachers supporting them, and even there were some separate schools, for example, for blind students and so on. But okay, this all even the special education, because there was the idea of this flexibility that students, if they get effective special education, they can return back to the normal classroom. This was a very strong ideology in developing this special education, because the special education, particularly this when it's a separate special education class, can be seen as a labeling process. That it's a kind of negative label, that or stigmatizing process, but there was very strong attempts to avoid that with this flexibility idea.